Hey guys, welcome into tonight's live. Today is Sunday, April 7th. Thank you for joining me tonight. It is 8 p.m. right now, Eastern Standard Time, New York session. We're going to start by going over a bit of Forex news. I usually use Forex Factory for the calendar. This also applies to indices as well. So we're going to start with indices, move on to metals, and then we're going to move on to Forex pairs. It's always important to check the news, read for the news. Same thing as last time. If it's red folder USD, try to stay out of it completely if you're not a news trader because at that point you're pretty much gambling, right? You have to be very careful when it comes to the red folder news. It's extremely highly volatile, so be very careful trading it. Even if you're not trading a USD pair, USD red folder news will affect the entire market. I know, I speak from experience. I've had other pairs that were open, like for example GBP JPY, while USD news was going on, and it completely reversed on me because of the effect of the USD news. So be very careful when it comes to USD news on all Forex pairs and all indices. Now without further ado, let's get into the actual events themselves. So you're gonna see over here in the top, Sunday, April 7th, we have nothing, no red folder news for the Asian session. Moving on to Monday, we're looking pretty good. The only thing that we see here is CHF. That's an orange. Expect a little bit more volatility, but not as much as a red folder news. Tuesday, we're looking at the charts. We do see New Zealand, the Kiwi, right? New Zealand dollar, NZD. Red folder news there. That's Asian session on my time frame. Wednesday, you're looking at red folder news for USD early in New York session, followed by Canadian a little bit later after that, but still early in the New York session. That's right after market open for New York. Then you're also looking at another pair for CAD and another USD red folder news. That's all occurring on Wednesday. Thursday, we're looking at red folder news for Euro, USD, and then USD again in the afternoon. And then Friday, surprisingly, it's not chock full of red folder news like usually Friday is. It's just GBP during market open for London session, which is 2 a.m. my time, and then you also have right after New York session open my time, red folder news for USD. Now let's jump on the charts for Nasdaq. Give me 1 second to adjust it over here. Perfect. Now you guys can see my charts. So we're gonna start looking at Nasdaq on the weekly. Nasdaq on the weekly, we are still looking bullish, right? Higher highs, higher lows with the market structures. Here we do see a little bit of consolidation, which is why I highlighted it yellow. I usually highlight my consolidation areas in yellow, so you guys can see that we are still consolidating until we're not, right? It's gonna still ping pong within this top and this bottom inside this little area here that I marked out. We're looking on the weekly. I don't see anything else additional added on the weekly besides these few that we've already marked out. We'll go over those in a moment. But for now, we're just looking for fair value gaps. We do have one over here as well, and another one right below it. But since it's so far away from the price action, we're not going to label those just yet. We're going to wait for price action to start moving its way a little bit lower. You're looking at about 16,200 here, but it's going to take some time to get back down to those levels since we are extremely bullish. So let's not worry about that. Let's worry about the price action that's happening around where price is currently at. Moving on to the daily. Remember this zone over here, guys? This zone is an accumulation zone. So we had it marked out since last Sunday. So we marked it out like around here. Marked out this. Now the zone tapped into the bottom. It's reacting perfectly. Now, more than likely than not, it's going to bounce into this buy side liquidity and then ping pong until it either breaks out or it gets rejected, and then we're looking into bearish positions. So now for the daily, I don't see anything additional. You have this daily fair value gap down here. If it breaks down through here, it's going to seek this 4-hour fair value gap, which we're looking at 17,850. And then it's going to seek out this daily fair value gap, which we're looking at 17,294-ish area. All right. This looks pretty good. What does this 4-hour look like? 4-hour looks like it's still bearish. This is a massive imbalance left over here, right? This fair value gap, it's bearish as well. Tapped into the 50% mark over here. We'll see how this daily candle plays out. But remember, as long as it doesn't break this 50% mark, then we're still good to go. It has to close above this body of this candle in order to invalidate this. But for now, we are bearish. right? It's still within this fair value gap, so it's still in play. We're gonna see how that plays out. Besides that, I don't really see anything else. Just remember, guys, this 4-hour fair value gap over here, 17.84. I have it here at 848. But we're looking at, it's a little bit higher than it should be. Should be right there. So 17.851. That's the area that we're looking at for this 4-hour fair value gap. Might tap into it and then also drop in. Yeah, I might tap into it and then just pretty much reject off it in bullish movement. We also have 2 fair value gaps over here, looking to actually continue the movement upwards. Let's mark these and play these out very carefully. We're going to look for confluences when price action comes back into here. So you have 1 fair value gap over here. We're looking at bullish. It's still not confirmed bullish because it's not a market structure shift, but we're going to label these out as areas of points of interest. Price action should react to this as well, but the fact is there was no market structure shift to the upside yet confirmed, so we are still bearish. But just be very careful with these areas. Just make sure you have them marked out to see how price action reacts to these. This could actually play out in a really cool way, right? So price action could actually just rip through them, and then these become inverted fair value gaps, in which case these points of interest should be like entry points for you for the bearish position. So we'll watch how price action plays out. So if it breaks down through this and closes beneath it, look into these areas for retracement. Now I don't see, yeah, that's pretty much all we see here as long as this is accumulating. Remember to mark out your levels here. This 4-hour fair value gap, 17.851. This daily one over here that's gonna seek as well, 17.295, right? 295-ish. Let's say 17.300 flat. Then you also have 4-hour fair value gap over here at 17.137.5. Then you also have another daily at 17.045, and then another 4-hour underneath that at 16.917.75. You have a couple others beneath that, but we're just going to focus on these points of interest, these PD arrays for now. Now, does anybody have any questions for me on the points of interest that we have identified so far? If not, let me get a thumbs up, and then we're going to move on to the next. We're going to go into US 30. We're looking good. Haha, thumbs up. Let's go. All right, cool. Remember, guys, I'm going to upload this to YouTube as well. So if you need to review this, go back and mark out your levels. Feel free to do so as soon as I upload the video. You can pause and play it out as much as you want. Moving on to US 30. I'm going to clean up these charts a little bit. Remember, I do not clean up the charts until the next week when I go over the live. I don't want to cheat you guys. I close these charts on Friday evening, and then I don't open them again until Sunday. So let me just adjust a couple of things here, clean this up a little bit. This all-time high is now another new all-time high. Just give me one moment to adjust this, make sure it's good. And that looks good. Yep, that's the all-time high. Alrighty. Habibi. Alright, US 30. We have a lot of points of interest over here. We were expecting a pullback, but price action has just been ripping right through it. I'm still going to leave these active. I know it's a lot, it's a little messy, but we're going to focus on this area over here. Price action still is bullish on the weekly until it gives me a market structure shift to the downside. Right now, we're still looking good. Price action is still right above this market structure, so we're still good to go. Let's go down to the daily. What does the daily say? Daily says we're looking at a pullback right now. Reason being, we have a market structure shift right over here. And then we also have a fair value gap, aka imbalance, that was left over. So this would be your point of entry. This is the fair value gap that's left over, and it's a market structure shift. For now, on the short term, we're looking for bearish position, right? So let's mark out this level. I say short term because right now all the indices are ripping very, very bullish. So this is a little bit risky when you compare it to like all the action that's going on right now in the markets. Futures markets, Forex markets, stock markets. It's a lot of positive, which is good, bullish price action. So this is still very, very strong. But it is a market structure shift, and a fair value gap that's left over. In theory, this should reject off it, go down, and then probably seek over here. So we've been looking to seek this area here for a while. This is the weekly weekly overlapping with the 4-hour fair value gap. This level here is at 38,021. So most probable plan of action would be price action retest here in this fair value gap, breaks through this liquidity, sell side liquidity, because it's already tapped into it, so that's been more or less mitigated, and then seek the next sell side liquidity, which also happens to be the weekly and the 4-hour fair value gap. Now, being that it's a weekly fair value gap, this holds so much more weight than just any other fair value gap, right? Because we're looking at a higher time frame, we're looking at weekly, meaning that on the daily, on the 4-hour, on the 1-hour, you should see price react off this pretty well, right? Meaning that we should see a lot of volume behind it, rejecting it back up. Now, what that could be seeking is another buy side liquidity that's left over from a market structure, or a fair value gap that's left over here from the price action moving down. In either case, we're looking for continuation of that price action in a bearish position. For right now, we are looking for bearish entries. This is our bearish entry. This is this fair value gap right over here. We're going to color it red. Let's make this line over here, Alt H. We're going to color that red as well because we are bearish. So that entry, we're looking at 39,601.55. Market structure shift, imbalance with a fair value gap. This is an entry for a bearish position. We are seeking for price action to come and retest this weekly and 4-hour fair value gap here again, right? So what this would look like would be entry here. Remember, stop loss is always the previous candle, wick or body, but seen as this fair value gap is actually higher than the previous candle and body, we're going to put it over here at the all-time high. So pretty much the all-time high is going to be our stop loss, targeting the weekly 4-hour fair value gap. Now, this is not a signal. This is just how I would do it. This is how I see the price action moving. But remember, like I said, right now, everything in the market is very bullish. So even though our technical analysis is saying like, hey, this is the market structure shift, here's a fair value gap left over, we're going to be bearish. Price action could just rip through this. We have 3 different red folder news days here this week, right? You have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Any one of these in just one candle could make this price action just break through the all-time high, continuation to the upside. So just be very cautious when it comes to that. Whenever you do have price action play out in this point of interest, watch it on a lower time frame. You're looking for entries on the 5-minute or the 15-minute time frame to make sure that you're getting in at an optimal, at the best possible opportunity that you can, right? At the highest quality trade that you can. So pretty much what you're looking for on the lower time frames, like the 5-minute and the 15-minute, is the same price action to play out. A market structure shift to the downside with an imbalance left over. So like on a 5 or 15-minute, you'll see this price action, downward price action with the fair value gap left over. In order for you to feel confident that this is going to continue down, and then our next point of interest is going to be this weekly 4-hour fair value gap 50% mark. Now guys, I do want you to also mark out below that you're going to have 2 other points of interest that are dailies as well. You have this one that's at 37,711.39, and then you also have this other one which is beautiful. It sits right above an order block. This one is 37,394.29. This is the closest points of interest right now to the price action. Make sure you set your alerts on these. Remember, we're targeting a bearish position here, and we're targeting this area here for price action to move. I'm getting some feedback from someone's microphone. Looks like they left. All right, cool. Let's go down to the 4-hour fair value gap, see how price action looks. Look at that. So you have this 4-hour fair value gap over here. Let's label this. This is a daily fair value gap. It's also a 4-hour one too, because they both overlap. So on this line, 39,601.55, this 4-hour fair value gap overlaps with the daily fair value gap. That's a nice little added confidence right there. We're also looking at this fair value gap over here. This fair value gap over here is another bearish fair value gap. This is on the 4 hour. I'm gonna mark this one as well. This is at 39213.60. We're gonna label this order block as well. Excuse me, fair value gap. This is a 4 hour fair value gap 50% mark. We're gonna watch that. We're gonna watch these two different levels. This one has more weight because it's a confluence of a 4 hour and a daily. You also have over here the golden pocket. This is actually an entry where I would go, because this, if I can eye this out, this will probably be like the 7.9, right between the 7.05 and probably just at the 7.9, right? So if you draw your fibs here, that's going to be your extreme premium, but it's also going to be part of your optimal trade entry zone. Wow, that's beautiful. So see, that's a really good entry point for me. Two different confluences, actually three. Daily fair value gap, 4 hour fair value gap, and when you draw the fibs, you have it right in between the 6.2 and the 7.9. That area is called your optimal trade entry, and then that's at an extreme premium right now. It's pretty nice how price action is moving. I like the fact that there's a market structure shift here and another one over here. You have two of them with imbalances left behind, both bearish. I like that. I like that a lot, actually. So we have one here. I'm looking for pretty much like a scalp here on the lower time frame. I'm looking at probably like a 1 hour candle, something and below. And then over here, this is where I'm seeing the big move. This is where I'm expecting this move to actually push down price action into this weekly 4 hour fair value gap. That's what's going to have enough strength to continue the trend downward into here. But for sure, I do see some reaction here and here as well. But the most influential one's going to be this 4 hour daily fair value gap, because it overlaps with our optimal trade entry and the continuation of the trend downward, right? So this, let me mark it out for you guys. So like price action moving up to like up here and then down here, and they'll most likely bounce back up into some kind of fair value gap that's here, and then target the next point of interest. But we'll see how price we'll see how price plays out this week, because like I said, all the indices, metals, everything's pretty much running up, very bullish. If you saw gold's at 2,300 right now, it's insane. Nas is hitting all-time highs, US 30 is hitting all-time highs, everything's hitting all-time highs. So just keep a close eye on that. Now, does anybody have any questions for me in regards to US 30? Shout out to Jay. What's up, Jay? What's up, Mozzie? Let me get thumbs up in the chat so we can move on to the next pair. And next pair we're going to be discussing is going to be gold. Speak now, forever hold your peace. Let me get a thumbs up. Let's go. All right, we're going on to gold, guys. We're going to start off on the weekly. Remember, weekly, daily, 4 hour. Anything lower than that, I'm going to use as a point of entry. Point of entries are going to be 5 and 15 minutes. Sorry for the messy charts, guys, but we were waiting for some pullbacks. Like I said, with US 30, we were waiting for pullbacks. We identified all these points of interest, but it's just been rallying, which is great. But we also have all these areas already marked out for you guys. So when price action comes back into it, you know what to do. Right now, what are we looking at? We're on the weekly. We do have a fair value gap over here. Remember, it's a weekly fair value gap. So the fact that it's a weekly gives it so much more weight. We're going to identify this. Remember, guys, I am using the ACAP broker. Your broker might be a little bit different when it comes to the actual pricing itself. But identify the candles, identify the fair value gaps on your broker. And then you can review this video on YouTube as well if you need to go back. We're going to label this as well. You are a weekly fair value gap 50%. Very, very important. For me, this is at 2225.76. We can round that off to 2226. Now, do I see anything else price action wise close by? Yeah, we do have one at 2120. There's a weekly fair value gap 50% mark. And then you got a daily inside that one too at 2099. Make sure to have those labeled. You also have another one. This one's beautiful. This one has 3 different confluences. You're looking at 4 hour, daily, and weekly. All 3 overlapping right over here. This is at 2060.55. Make sure to have those marked up. Make sure to have your alert set on those. You should be expecting some great price action rejection from that. We're going to move this all-time high because now it looks like every week is a gold all-time high. Same thing with NAS and US 30. Every week is a new all-time high, which is great. But we're going to ride that wave. Whether it goes up, whether it goes down, we're identifying these points of interest to make sure we play out these moves. Now we're going to go down to the daily. Daily time frame, what are we looking at? Daily time frame, you have this daily fair value gap here overlapping with this weekly, meaning the weekly might wick through it. Same thing with the daily. Daily might just tap into it and then rejection to the upside. We're looking for bearish positions because we are still bullish. We're looking for bullish upwards positions until we're not, until we finally get that market structure shift, and then we're looking for downward trend. But for now, everything is pointing upward. Price action is bullish, fair value gaps are bullish, and then the market structures are break of structures. They are not market structure shifts. So they're just more in additions to the market structures. We can mark out this one too. Let's mark out this daily. I'm going to color you blue for bullish. And then I'm just going to label you here. Daily fair value gap 50% mark. You do have two different ones. So you have the weekly and then the daily kind of overlapping on top of that as well. So you might be looking for a cleaner entry would be here on the daily because the weekly is going to go right through it, tap into it, and then reject off it. If it plays out perfectly, just how we want it to, right? That's in a perfect world. But remember, always watch the price action. You have 3 different red folder news days here that could affect price action in any which way. But just know that these are the points of interest. If you also want to highlight this one over here, this fair value gap is at 22.42. Remember, your broker might be a little bit different. Check with your broker, but just know that there's a fair value gap here on top of this fair value gap here. They are both dailies. Now, if I were to draw my fibs, I would draw my fibs from this market structure low to the high right here. And you're going to see that it overlaps my 062 and my 705 with this daily fair value gap here. Meaning this is at my optimal trade entry zone, meaning that I am looking for an entry here and not here. Even though this might get a rejection off a lower time frame, we're talking about minutes, right? You can get a nice little fat candle, just scalp that in and out. But my actual point of entry, I'm looking at over here, which is going to be right at the 2213, right? 2213.39. That's at the 50% mark of this fair value gap. That's what I'm looking at. We're going to keep that optimal trade entry, my fibs. We're going to keep those active. Let's drop down to 4 hour. This looks pretty interesting. This is a bullish fair value gap over here. This candle, if it closes beneath that, then we might be expecting some bearish momentum and continuations on the downside. It's official once you get the market structure shift, and in the process of a market structure shift, if you have an imbalance, aka a fair value gap, then you have a real change of structure. You can either call it a change of structure, change of character, market structure shift. It's the same thing. It's just a trend flipping. Instead of being bullish as we are now, it'll flip to bearish. What do we see here on the 4 hour? 4 hour golden pocket overlaps with where the daily fair value gap is. There's also another 4 hour fair value gap here, exactly at the 705, right? So judging by this, since this is inside the daily and right underneath the weekly, and the fact that it overlaps with my 705, I'll probably enter right here. This is my 22. Yeah, 2201. Which is my 4 hour fair value gap 50% mark that I've had marked out for a while now. And it's inside the daily fair value gap too, which is great. So you have 2 different confluences there, daily, 4 hour, and the fact that it's sitting right at the exact point, which is 705 on the OTE fibs. Those are great confluences right there. All right, does anybody have any questions for me in regards to gold? We've identified the weekly, the daily, and the 4-hour. We're looking at some pretty nice entries on the 4-hour and the daily. We are still bullish, but we're expecting a retracement into these areas here. Collect some liquidity, get some more fuel, and then continuation to the upside. Hopefully breaking that all-time high again, but giving us an opportunity to jump in it when it actually does pull back. You guys have any questions for me on gold? Looking pretty good. Let me get thumbs up, and then we'll move on to the next pair. The next pair is going to be Euro USD, which I like to call Baby Nas, because it moves just like Nas, but not as violent. So you won't get wicked out here and there, but the price action moves pretty much the same, which is awesome. We got DM Buddy typing in the chat. See a couple new faces here in the chat as well. Welcome Falcon, Irene, Aim Sauce. We're looking good. We're moving on to Euro USD. Euro USD. That's on the weekly. That was on the daily. Remember guys, when you see yellow on my charts, that means we're inside an accumulation zone that I've identified. The fact that this chart pulls up yellow on my weekly, we are accumulating right now on the weekly. So we should be seeing ping pong behavior until it finally breaks out one way or the other, which is great. All right, we're seeing a ping pong. Boom, 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 boom. Let's see if we can play this out as much as possible. Weekly, bias, accumulation. Daily. What do we see on the daily? Daily, we see this fair value gap over here. This happened this previous week, right? This happened on Friday. Tapped into that 50% mark. Closed, now reopened over here, up here. Big ass gap, right? Market close, market open. But technically tapped into the 50% mark, so price action should move up. Crazy thing is, tapped into here first and then moved down. Missed it by a few pips though, because I had an alert set and it missed it by a few pips for me. This was on a 4-hour. So over here I was going to short, but I wasn't able to capture it because my alarm never went off. So missed it by a few pips just because my alert just didn't go off. Didn't see it. But over here on the daily, you have this here on the daily 50% mark. Tapped into, should be continuation to the upside. We see a market structure shift. So we should see bearish positions. Fair value gap here was tapped into and mitigated. And this one was close enough. It's only a few pips off, but we're going to consider this as mitigated as well. So those two are mitigated. We're looking for this for continuation upwards. And then we're also looking for a bullish market structure shift in order to confirm that trend change. But for now, it's still kind of indecisive. We should be expecting price action to move up, but we have to wait until price action starts developing and gives us a clear indication of a market structure shift or a fair value gap. Hopefully on the 4-hour it looks a little bit better. Right now we're on the daily. On the 4-hour it's a lot more clear. You see here it did tap into the fair value gap twice and then continuation to the upside. On 4-hour you do see a market structure shift, right? You see a market structure shift and then you also see a massive imbalance left over and then a retest of this area here. So this should give us confidence that it's a continuation to the upside. Now the fact that this 4-hour fair value gap this 4-hour fair value gap was tapped into and mitigated leads us to believe that now we're targeting the next fair value gap. This has not been mitigated, has not been retested, so we're going to remove this one here and our target's going to be up here. 1.09280 is going to be our new target. And then this would have been our entry here. Now definitely wait for an additional confluence to get back into this trade on a lower time frame. But just know we are targeting for price action to move up here. We're just looking for a proper opportunity to show itself. Now if you guys need any entry models, I'm going to post right here in the Discord as well. I have 8 entry models that I use for lower time frames, such as 5 minutes and 15 minutes. Once you have any of these play out in your charts, that's when I would definitely get into it. This is from another trader named Victorious that I found on Twitter, which is fantastic. These entry models are great. Definitely save these, look into these, use them for 5 and 15 minutes when you're inside those points of interest on the higher time frame. Now, just for shits and giggles, let's see on the 1 hour. Yeah, right now it's battling to get back up there. But yeah, it's pretty much outlook on Euro USD. It's ping ponging, it's accumulating, it's going up down within this inside this range. We're seeing a market structure shift and a fair value gap, aka imbalance, on the 4 hour. So this price action should go up. It should seek out this 4 hour fair value gap over here. Now, with the way the trend is going, it should reject off that completely and then come right back down. But somehow it needs to get up there in the first place. So watch this area here and then enter in the lower time frames, 5 minute and 15 minute. Catch that move, target 4 hour fair value gap over here, and then we're expecting this to be rejected. Do you guys have any questions for me when it comes to Euro USD? Guys, feel free to ask questions, right? This is a very casual charting session. We're on here to learn off each other. Just because I'm hosting it does not mean I'm not taking any questions. Feel free to ask questions as we go on. If we don't have any questions for Euro USD, let's head into GBP USD. GBP USD, we're looking bullish. Boom, boom. Right? Break a structure here, tap into this fair value gap, and then still continuation to the upside. We are bullish-ish, right? Because right now we're accumulating. We're inside an accumulation zone here. That's why it's yellow. This is on the weekly. We have a fair value gap here that was left over on the weekly that has been tapped into and unmitigated. So we should be seeing price action probably retest this area here, because it's not at the exact 50% mark, but it's close enough, right? I think I'll call it. I think I'll call it. I'm gonna unlock this because the way price action is moving, it looks like it's actually going down. It's bearish. It's pretty close. I don't want to call it because it hasn't really tapped into it, but we're gonna eye this out. We're gonna label this as a weekly fair value gap. It's on a weekly time frame, so once it taps into that, we should be expecting this to like pretty much dump into the next weekly fair value gap. But playing out with weeklies, remember weekly candles, you're looking at a pretty long time frame. We're gonna look at this on the daily, see what's up on the daily. Daily, you have a market structure shift here, left over after that move. You also have a bullish fair value gap over here, but it doesn't look like it's holding. You gotta see how these candles play out in the next few days. Should be targeting the sell side liquidity. This pretty much got rejected over here off this fair value gap. So that's a daily fair value gap over here. That's been rejected off it completely. Continuation to the downside. So we should be expecting price action to continue moving to the downside. Targeting this over here. This is what we're looking at. Weekly and 4 hour fair value gap 50% mark. This is at 1.24354. Then you also have another point of interest right underneath that. That's 3 different confluences. That's daily, 4 hour, and 1 hour. Fair value gap, that's at 1.23442. So for now, we're looking for price action, continuation to the downside with the way this price action is moving. Weekly, bearish. Daily, bearish for value gap. And now we're looking at the 4 hour. 4 hour looks like we have an entry over here. On the 4 hour, we have a fair value gap right over here. Go back on daily. Yep. Accumulation right there.
So, yeah. So basically, I think the area that's sell side, this is the important area if we want to continue down.
Yeah.
So we have to watch out one.
Yeah, it's gonna be our resistance area right here. It's also sitting right above this order block here too. So EZSMC marks it out, but this top of the wick and this bottom of the wick, that's an order block. Order block is sitting right on top of this sell side liquidity, and it's also a resistance level. It's a very, very important area.
I mean, if you are looking for shorts here, I think You have to take it from a little bit higher, man.
Yeah. So this weekly fair value gap here, I still think it's unmitigated because it's close, but it's not on it.
I mean, we might hit there in the green area and go a little bit higher to up there, yeah.
Outside the accumulation zone, right?
Yeah, I might think so. Let's see how this area will act.
Exactly, right? It's still a little bit indecisive. But we also have this area here. This is a 4-hour fair value gap, which is right underneath this one. That was a bullish one, but it's been mitigated. And then this one overlaps with the weekly one. But we should label this one too, because this one could be very important. With the news that we have this week, it could wick into that. And that'll be a nasty snipe. We're going to label this one. This is a 4-hour fair value gap, 50%. This one could play out to be really nasty in a good way. We're looking at 1.27490, and then this is the weekly one, 1.26971. Remember, I'm using ACAP as my broker on Forex. Make sure you're using the right broker for yours. Price action is the same, but the actual price itself would be a little bit different. And then what do we have over here? This one too. Let me mark this out too, because you can see some movement on the lower time frames. You can probably use this as scalp. Now that I'm doing futures more often, I'm looking at a lot of different ways to scalp. This could be a nice little scalp as well. Tap into here, candle movement down, and then it'll probably break through, or you should get some movement downwards. This one right over here, you're looking at 1.26544. And pretty cool here how I bounced off the golden pocket. Fair value gap and golden pocket here on the 4-hour. Tapped into it, bounced off. Pretty cool. But yeah, guys, those are the points of interest here for GBP USD. Does anybody have any questions for me when it comes to GBP USD? If not, give me a thumbs up, and then we'll move on to the last pair for the evening. It's going to be Aussie USD. All right, we're moving to Aussie USD. What is this? Aussie JPY? That's crazy. I was expecting this to come down. It might actually. Yeah, that's what I'm waiting for. Aussie JPY. This is one of like Jay's favorite pair, but we're not gonna go over that one. We're gonna go over Aussie USD. Looks like a lot of pairs are accumulating. We have a couple different levels over here. On the weekly it's accumulating. It's staying inside this zone right here, this range. What does the weekly look like? Nothing here. We do have a daily and a weekly fair value gap over here. This level is looking at 0.67568. We don't have a market structure shift, so it's not a confirmation that it's a change in structure. We had a market structure shift over here, then come right back up to retest the buy side liquidity, and then we have a fair value gap that was left over. We should get a nice little rejection off here once price action goes up here. Make sure to mark that. That's your point of interest, 0.67585. And remove that. Don't see anything else on the weekly. We have this one here. This fair value gap here on the weekly was tapped into, and it was mitigated already. And then we have down here, it's a daily and a 4-hour fair value gap. We're gonna go down into the daily to check this out. All right, daily, you have the daily, weekly fair value gap over here. That overlaps. The exact point, it's going to be this one on the daily, 0.67766. What do I see on the daily? Fair value gap, tapped and mitigated. And then this one too, tapped and mitigated. But now it's a new one, it's a fresh one over here. Now it's a fresh fair value gap over here. This one's sitting right above the golden pocket too. So that gives it an additional confluence. So you have the fibs with the golden pocket overlapping with the fair value gap. This should reject off it, continuation to the upside. This could actually be the one that moves this price action to tap into this daily, weekly, and then continuation downwards after that, rejected right off that level. We tapped into here on a 4-hour fair value gap 50% mark, so we're going to remove that because it has been mitigated. Sell side liquidity has been tapped into over here. Looks like a pretty strong zone too, resistance area. What else do we see on the daily? This price action here, this is a fair value gap here on the daily as well. Pretty important because price action might come to test that out. This one we're looking at 0.66679. We're gonna mark this out. Daily fair value gap 50%. Let's go down into the 4-hour. Remember, this bottom one here is the daily fair value gap, which is bullish. 0.65400. Let's round it up. Market structure shift is bullish. Fair value gap left over is bullish. Should in theory tap into here. And then continuation to the upside. This fair value gap here, we're looking at the 4-hour. This is a bullish fair value gap. So the daily and the 4-hour overlap identically. So you have 4-hour and the daily overlapping at the same exact 50% mark. And then it's also the golden pocket. If you do the OTE fibs, it's overlapping with the 0.62. And then the ending of that is a 0.705. 0.79 is inside the order block. So those are pretty nice confluences right there. We should be expecting price action to tap into this. Continuation to the upside. And then since the market structure shift, the change of structure is bullish, we should be seeing this tap into this fair value gap, see some kind of movement, but price action break through it, continuation to over here, which is a 4-hour fair value gap. It's a daily fair value gap, 50% mark, which holds way more weight than 4 hours. So price action might even wick into it and then continue downwards. But we should be expecting price action to break through this 4-hour fair value gap. So, point of interest on the daily. We have a 4-hour and a daily fair value gap here, 50% mark. Set your alerts on this. 0.65400 or 0.65396. And then the next daily fair value gap, which is going to be bearish, it's going to be up here. 0.66687. Make sure you have your weekly marked out as well. The weekly / daily 0.67570. And then there's a daily one right here, 0.67755. Lower time frames for scalping. And make sure your points of entry are inside the points of interest. And you're looking at about like 5-15 minute. That's going to be your entry. Make sure to look at those entry, different entry level structures on the 5 and 15 minutes. And then that's pretty much where you're going to be looking at those 8 different entry structures. Now, does anybody have any questions for me with Aussie USD? I have a friend that actually trades a lot of Aussie USD and it goes really well for him. And then when I'm looking at his charts, the charts are like very, very clear. So that's why I started adding it to my TA, especially for like the Forex traders, because it's a pretty good pair too. It's pretty solid. Nice volatility without being too crazy. You have bad luck with it? I've actually tested it out like a few times. I had good luck with it. And then the price action was actually like great. And it was actually moving very well. Like it was actually very clean. Like this to me looks pretty clean. Even though you have your wicks and everything, like the price action is like, okay, I'm going to go up, it goes up. I'm going to go down and it comes down. Instead of like, you know? Let me lock that in. But yeah, look at those structures, the market structures themselves. It looks pretty clean on Aussie USD. Now, if you did something with like a CAD pair, like Aussie CAD, that looks like a headache. And then USD CAD. USD CAD has been moving pretty good. But yeah, I don't like CAD pairs at all. I have all CAD pairs blacklisted. Just because it's never really worked out for me. And I don't like the way the price action moves. Gotta remove some of these. I'm gonna clean these up like right now after the live. And only use the pairs that actually do trade. Aussie CAD looks pretty good. That looks a nice low entry right there. Alright guys, seeing as there are no more questions for me in regards to the pairs that we went over tonight, we went over indices, we went over metals, we went over a couple Forex pairs, and we've identified the points of interest on the weekly, the daily, and the 4-hour. Remember, on those points of interest that we've identified, use the 8 different entry models that I put into the Forex, into the Discord of those Forex pairs, so that you can use those on 5 and 15 minutes inside those points of interest. That way you're not YOLOing into the trades, and make sure to also not force your trades throughout the week. Reason that we mark out these points of interest is so we're not forcing trades every single day and trying to be in a trade just for the hell of being in a trade. Now, for all the late joiners that joined, unfortunately we are over, but I'm uploading everything to YouTube right now, so give it a couple minutes. It's gonna go live, and then you guys can review everything on YouTube as many times as you want. I do have a question by Falcons. What 7 indicators do you use? It's a great question. I have one indicator that's just the watermark, which is what you see over here. That's called the AGFX watermark. EZSMC, which is free for the pro members. This is a Smart Money Concepts indicator, which is also ICT. It's what I usually trade now. I started off with retail trading concepts, but now I use Smart Money Concepts. FEG by Nephew Sam pretty much marks out all my fair value gaps automatically. I like overlapping that with EZAlgo SMC, because sometimes Nephew Sam, the indicator, marks out the fair value gaps well, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes fair value gap by Nephew Sam marks out fair value gaps that Easy doesn't, and then sometimes Easy marks some out that Nephew Sam does not as well. So they kind of like help each other in balance. It's just so I can spot out the fair value gaps a little bit faster. It's not necessary, but I just enjoy it. I have these other 3 here, which I don't really use. I just have them just in case I have to cycle between them. One is a trading checklist, which I have a checklist for my strategy, which I'm still developing. It's working out pretty well, but I don't want to go live with that strategy yet because I'm trying to milk it as much as I can. ICT kill zones and pivots. I have this marked out on the lower time frames because part of my trading style is targeting current sessions high and current sessions low. So depending where Asian session starts and it's moving, that's how I see price action throughout the day for my intraday trading. That's ICT kill zones. It's pretty cool too, so you can mark it out so you can check out how Asia moves, London moves, and whatnot. And then I have fluid trades, which pretty much marks out buy side liquidity, sell side liquidity zones. Right? As you can see there, supply demand zones. Haven't been using it, but I have it there. And then last but not least, of course, EZAlgo V12. If you don't have V12.1, make sure to update it. It's fantastic. It even has AI signals. So for scalping on lower time frames, as you can see here, this AI signal told me to go long on this candle. If you would have done that, you would have been up all this much, right? It's pretty legit. Over here, told me to go up, told me to buy in after this candle, and then sell over here, which you would have made a small scalp, but it's pretty good. Same thing with down here, right? It'll tell you short here on this candle, and then they go short. There's a fair value gap there, which I would have targeted and then gotten out of there. So definitely upgrade to the EZAlgo 12.1 if you're an EZAlgo Pro subscriber. And we have another question in the Discord. How do you determine entries in intraday? I am struggling with entries. So review the YouTube video that I'm going to upload tonight. I identify every single Sunday, and tonight we did the same thing. Points of interest. Points of interest are the areas in which we're using as our entries. And then within those points of interest, you're going to go down into a lower time frame, 5 and 15 minutes. Right above your comment, you're going to see I just posted 8 different entry models. So whenever you see price action goes into those points of interest, and let's say you're looking at it in a 4-hour, or price action tested it out and your alerts or alarms went off, that means it's time for you to start looking for an entry, which the entry models are there for you. You're going to identify one of those 8 entry models inside that point of interest, which is a higher time frame point of interest, and then you're going to go with the price action from there. So that's how you determine it. It's going to take a little bit of practice, just make sure to cycle through those 8 entry models. Make sure you're looking at that, and also make sure you're trading inside those points of interest, so you have the highest probability of your trade going in your direction, of the trade actually being correct. Remember, trading is never 100%. Price action could just pretty much tell you like, hey, you know, F off. I'm going to go up anyways, even though all the TA in the world is saying, and all the fundamentals in the world are saying we're going into a bearish position. Price action at the end of the day is going to do whatever it wants. But having those tools is going to give you the biggest chance of success, if that makes any sense. If it's a little too much, make sure to watch the video and then review it. Identify the points of interest, set your alerts, and just study the 8 entry models. I do see you're writing something else. Do you guys have any other questions for me before we call it a night? Trapro H28 is writing something else as well. Question is, so for intraday, is trend matters? If yes, how? For instance, trend is up, you go for longs and avoid shorts. You have to identify the trend on the daily. If the daily and the 4 hour is telling you that you're bullish, then you're going to look for bullish positions. It's going to be the most probable thing. Trade with the trend. If you're having trouble identifying it, watch my video that I put up tonight, and you'll see that I identify the trends for those days and the week so far. So just trade with that trend. Now, if you're having a lot of issues with identifying the trend movement itself, use EZAlgo V12. Go to the dashboard. It's a little cheat sheet. Go to the settings, go down in EZAlgo. It's going to be called the trend dashboard. Click show dashboard. You're looking for, what does the trend look like on the 12 hour? What does the trend look like on the daily? That's what you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at 8 hour, 12 hour daily to determine the daily trend. Now, if you see on the 8 hour is red, 12 hour is green, daily is green, you're overall looking for a bullish position, but a retracement could be happening right now, meaning that price actions come pulling back, and it should be pulling back into a point of interest. But overall, for the daily, you should be looking for longs. But if the price action looks like this, you're looking for shorts in the meantime. It takes a lot of practice. There are a lot of videos out there. There's a lot of videos on the EZAlgo YouTube channel as well, in order to help you out with identifying the actual trend itself. Now, guys, thank you very much for joining me tonight. Like I said, I will be uploading this video on YouTube so you guys can review and go over those points of interest and set your alerts. That's it. That's going to be it for me. Have a great and wonderful trading week. Hopefully a very profitable trading week. And see you all again same time next week. Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York session. Goodbye for now, guys. Take care.